In Brazil, the death toll has risen to 40 after the storm on the coast of Sao Paulo. Also in Turkey, at least 6 people were killed and 300 were injured on Monday after 2 new earthquakes on magnitude 6.5 and 5.8 were recorded along the border with neighboring Syria. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered his annual address to the Federal Assembly on Tuesday to report on the main objective of the nation's domestic and foreign policies. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. In Brazil, the death toll after the storm on the coast of Sao Paulo has risen to 40, according to an official report released on Monday by the state government. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva overflew the area on Monday and stated that all levels of government will be brought together and to attend to the injured, search for the missing, and restore roads, power, and telecommunications links in the region. On top of the disease, 40 people are currently reported missing, and more than 1,700 people have been forced to leave their homes due to flooding and landslides. Authorities said municipal teams with psychologists and social workers are working to receive the victims' relatives, as a police team continues to work to identify the bodies. Mauritius and Madagascar are preparing for floods and storm surges before the arrival of Cyclone Freddy to the Southeast African coasts, classified as dangerous by the United Nations Meteorological Agency. As of Monday, Mauritius suspended flights and closed its stock exchange in view of the passage of the cyclone near the Indian Ocean island. As emergency crews prepare for heavy rains, flooding and landslides in 4 regions of Madagascar. The phenomenon, which with wind gusts of up to 120 kilometers per hour, poses a direct threat to Mauritius, according to its meteorological service. Authorities on the island of Madagascar, about 1,130 kilometers west of Mauritius, said they expected a direct hit late on Tuesday between Mahanoro in the east and Mahanaraka in the southeast. And now we move on to other topics. Protests continue in several Peruvian regions to reject the government of Dina Boluarte. The people of Aymara demonstrated this Monday in the region of Puno, while unions and guilds in the north of the country called for a strike. Indigenous groups took to the streets to demand the resignation of the president and the convocation or the calling of a constituent assembly, while the south of the nation, different unions and the Departmental Workers Federation in Arequipa joined the national strike. According to the recent polls, more than 70% of the population demands an advance in the elections for this year. In Bolivia, there are 8,700 officially reported cases of dengue fever in 7 of its 9 regions, and so far 29 people have died from the disease. Most of the cases have been reported in Santa Cruz, the largest region in the country. Health Minister Jason Auza said on Monday that the dengue case fatality rate stands at 0.3%. He stressed that regarding dengue, the key is to eliminate mosquito breeding grounds. So he asked people to support government actions by cleaning spaces that could pose a risk for the proliferation of the vector. Reports indicate that 57% of the cases occur in the age group of 6 to 29 years, and that the disease is currently found in 14 of the 15 provinces. In Venezuela, the National Bolivarian Armed Forces destroyed 4 drug trafficking camps in the Santa Ana River in the state of Zulia. The strategic operational commander of the mentioned forces, General-in-Chief Domingo Hernandez Lares, informed about the security operation in which the smuggling facilities were destroyed. The commander announced the seizure of more than 40,000 liters of aeronautical fuel, military equipment, explosive elements, and drugs. The military officer pointed out that those responsible for these camps were presumably Colombian drug traffickers in the country. And the government of El Salvador announced that it will maintain the exception regime to prevent gang members from returning to the communities. Salvadoran authorities asserted that reforms to the legal system will be maintained and those necessary to confront the country's security problems will be implemented. Meanwhile, they are evaluating various proposals and projects regarding the reduction of the number of municipalities, the modification of the number of deputies that represent the departments in the Legislative Assembly, and maintaining the price of taxes. They also pointed out that there are no proposals for constitutional reforms on the political radar. However, they estimate that there could be reforms within specific laws. In Brazil, the most important carnivals in the world are underway, and its citizens have taken to the streets to enjoy the parades to the rhythm of the samba. The city of Rio de Janeiro has returned to celebrate its famous carnivals after 2 years of restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The celebrations welcome a large number of tourists from both the Sambódromo and the street carnival. The Rio de Janeiro mayor's office estimates that it will generate approximately $880 million in the local economy this year. The events are held from February 17th to the 25th of the same month. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, at least 6 people were killed and 300 injured after 2 new earthquakes of magnitude 6.5 and 5.8 were recorded south of Türkiye. According to Turkish media, 294 people were injured in the southeastern province of Hatay. 18 of them are in serious condition and have already been transferred to the cities of Adana and Dortiol. The Euro-Mediterranean Seismological Center reported that the earthquake was registered 9 kilometers from Antakya in Turkey and 75 kilometers from the Syrian city of Latakia, at a depth of 10 kilometers. The telluric movements were perceived in Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, and Cyprus.
People panicked. It was a very powerful earthquake. There were buildings near the tent where we were. So people were cut off from their families. I live here. I suffered the earthquake, but I was with friends who had come as volunteers. So we tried to reassure people. Currently, we're looking at where people need help, and at the same time, our friends are trying to reassure people because there has been a real panic, because people psychologically still suffer the after effects of the first. And we were checking at the same time where we are going to have to go to help people.
And the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced that more than 114,000 people were rescued during the search operations following the February 6 earthquake. Erdogan said that the debris clearance works are about to be completed. The Emergency Management Agency said that the death toll from the earthquake in Türkiye exceeded 41,000. President Erdogan stated that more than 1.5 million people are living in temporary shelters and that housing will be made available for those affected.
The authorities have provided shelter to this day to 1,684,000 citizens affected by the earthquake that devastated the south of the country. We will allocate 100,000 prefabricated houses in the earthquake area, with the possibility of raising that number to 200,000 if necessary. So far, 114,834 people have been rescued from under the rubble.
Now we move on to other topics. The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, delivered his annual address to the Federal Assembly on Tuesday to report on the main directions to be taken in the domestic and foreign policy. The Russian president assessed the special military operation in Ukraine and the international situation before deputies, senators, military commanders, religious leaders, and other guests. The president's message included both political, economic, and ideological provisions and specific proposals in the field of legislative work of both chambers of the Russian parliament. During his speech, Putin stressed that his government did everything that was possible to peacefully resolve the Ukrainian crisis, but behind its back, a completely different scenario was being prepared. He also stated that the special military operation launched a year ago is aimed at protecting the population of our historic lands. Regarding the nation's economy, Putin stated that the sanctions imposed by the West against the country seek the suffering of the Russian people. However, he stressed that his government was implemented measures to avoid this objective. In the U.S., in Ohio, an explosion in a metal and paint plant in Bedford left at least 12 people injured with severe burns. Debris from the blast reportedly damaged cars in their parking lot and hit the roof of a building. Local media reported that multiple fire crews were deployed to put out the resulting fire. Ambulances and emergency crews arrived also to treat the injured. So far, it remains unclear what caused the explosion at around 2:30 p.m. local time. The explosion, or the blast, occurred just about 112 kilometers northwest of East Palestine, where a toxic train derailed on February the 3rd. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Burkina Faso, according to a new provisional balance sheet published on Monday by the army, at least 51 soldiers were killed last Friday in an ambush by suspected terrorists in the north of the country. The General Staff of the Armed Forces informed that at least 43 new bodies were found on Monday, raising the provisional balance to 51 military dead. This after previously announcing a balance of 8 soldiers killed as a result of the attack that took place last February 17th in the province of Oudalan. In this context, the statement also pointed out that in recent operations, the uniformed managed to neutralize more than 100 terrorists at the same time that they seized and destroyed a large amount of combat equipment. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, new clashes between M23 rebels and the army troops were reported in the east of the country. Confrontations between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels began in the Kishanga area, northwest of the eastern city of Goma. The fighting came as regional leaders called once again for a ceasefire and for all armed groups to withdraw from occupied territory by March 30th. More than 120 armed groups or self-defense militias are believed to be fighting in the east of the country. The Democratic Republic of the Congo accuses neighboring Rwanda of backing the rebels, a claim endorsed by a United Nations panel of experts. And the United Nations Security Council reaffirmed on Monday its deep concern and dismay over the announcement by the government of Israel to continue construction and expansion of its settlements in the Palestinian territory. In a presidential statement released during a session devoted to the situation in the Middle East, the body expressed its strong opposition to any unilateral measures that impede peace, including Israeli construction and expansion, land confiscation, and the legalization of settlement outposts and the displacement of civilians. UN's Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Tor Wensland, recalled that Israeli settlements, including outposts, are illegal under international law and remain a substantial obstacle to peace. Russia and Iran condemned an Israeli attack that killed 5 people and injured 15 in Syria's capital, Damascus. Both nations strongly expressed their rejection after Syrian air defenses repelled an Israeli aggression on the Kafar Susah neighborhood in Damascus on Saturday. As a result, 5 people were killed, including a soldier, while 15 civilians were injured and several houses were destroyed. Iranian and Russian officials called the attack a flagrant violation of international law. In this sense, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova urged the Israeli government to refrain from steps with dangerous consequences for the entire region. The attack on Damascus came less than 2 weeks after a deadly 7.8 magnitude earthquake that struck northern Syria and southern Türkiye. On Monday, the Russian ambassador to China, Igor Morgulov, met China's envoy for the Korean Peninsula, Liu Xiaomin, to discuss the issue of security in the sub-region. The Russian embassy expressed on its Telegram channel the heightened need to increase efforts to find a comprehensive political and diplomatic solution to the security problems in the Korean Peninsula, taking into account fair concerns of all parties involved. As reported on Monday, North Korea fired 2 missiles into Japan's sea in response to Sunday's joint U.S.-South Korean maneuvers. The missiles flew for 400 kilometers and also for 300 of those weapons. The missiles flew for these 400 kilometers and 350 kilometers respectively before falling outside Japan's exclusive economic zone. During 2022, Pyongyang conducted a total of 37 missile launches, plus 3 more this year. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.